Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to have Christina Camarena.
Did I nailed it? Right? You nailed it.
Nailed it. I was joking with her earlier. I've known Christina for almost 6 years, and I didn't know how to say her last name.
I don't know how to say it either, so it's okay.
But it's all good. That's one thing I've gotten lucky with Christina. Brian Rowe, it's kind of hard to butcher that one.
Right.
Maybe once a year I get a row because of the E at the end. But for the most part.
Well, and my other last name, Houseladen, I mean, my whole life, nobody could ever say it right. People always want to add like 15 N's into it. So it'll be like Hanslanden or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, Christina, for this special bonus episode talking about Defending Your Life, written and directed by Albert Brooks, which dropped, in limited release at the end of March of 91. And it came out wide in April of 91. So this movie, my all-time favorite comedy, celebrating 30th anniversary come April. You just watched it for the very first time. I've watched it maybe 20 to 25 times since I was in high school. Yeah, I've watched it a lot. Any excuse I have to watch this. And there is one coming up, Christina.
Love those movies.
Because the Criterion Collection, which has amazing Blu-rays of classic and contemporary films, they just chose Defending Your Life to be on their label.
Cool.
So I believe
now you're gonna have to watch it again.
I believe it's just around now. They're dropping it soon, and it's a new Blu-ray transfer of the movie. It's gonna look gorgeous, and it's got bonus features, all sorts of cool stuff. So I can't wait to buy that one, because
you'll be embarrassed to hear that I don't have a Blu-ray player.
You don't have a Blu-ray?
No.
What do you watch? How do you watch movies? No, I know
on an Xbox, and then we have like some cheap TV from 10 years ago that has a DVD player in the side.
My parents haven't had a DVD player or a Blu-ray, I want to say, for 8 to 10 years. I mean, I know a lot of people are just streaming everything. It makes sense.
I still have a VHS player. That's how I watch Drowning Mona. Okay.
You have a VHS tape of Drowning Mona?
Yes, I do.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, kind of interesting to talk about this movie with someone who just watched it for the first time. So what were your thoughts on Defending Your Life, Christina? What did you think of this movie?
Oh, it was fun. I mean, the first movie you had me watch, I was a little worried about the next one, but I enjoyed it.
I hope the quality improved to Defending Your Life.
From Plaza Suites.
From Plaza Suites.
It did.
So this story,
I was just gonna say, it was really surprising. That's what I liked about it. It was surprising.
Yeah. When you turned it on, did you know it was about life after death? Did you know anything about it? So I
purposely didn't.
So this movie opens with at least 7-8 minutes of just him on Earth, like going about his birthday, and he buys a new car and he's driving around town, and you're watching the opening 7-8 minutes, like, what is this movie about? What's going on here? And then when the bus hits him, and then the next shot, he's being rolled down that hallway. What were you thinking, Christina?
I thought he was in the hospital. but I was like, why are they 3 wheelchairs all connected with one? And then there was like row after row of 3 wheelchairs. And then at some point,
when did you know it was? Well, I guess in the
when they got on a tram. I'm like, why are they at an airport hospital?
I mean, it does happen pretty fast, right? They get on the tram, and then there's the woman at the front, like, welcome, you are all dead.
Right. But no, I thought they didn't find out they were dead until he got to the hotel. Did she announce that on the tram?
I believe on the tram, maybe she doesn't say you're all dead, but
we know, yeah.
But
I was just so thrown by the fact that they were taking like a tram.
Albert Brooks does not he doesn't keep you in suspense for 20 minutes. Like, what's happening here? Pretty early on.
Yeah.
And he gets to his hotel. And there's so many funny details in this movie.
So many.
But one of the big ones, right, is that in this place you're in for 5 days, you can eat whatever you want and not gain weight. And it's the tastiest, most delicious food you'll ever have in your life.
The never-ending noodle you've never tasted pasta.
This is a reason why you should go back to Earth 100 times. Then you get to spend more days in the afterlife eating delicious food.
Okay, so I do have a question about the plot, though.
Yeah.
I was very confused by one thing.
Okay, what?
And the thing was, so Meryl Streep has 4 days of her. It's not a trial, but it kind of is a trial, right? They say you have 4 days.
So
and
he
says
So
He has
every
9
person,
days.
yeah. So every
But they
person
leave on the same day.
Okay. So every person who goes there, the trial lasts for 4 days. But some people only watch clips from 4 days of their life.
Okay.
Meryl Streep,
That makes more sense.
Julia led, I guess, a more fearless life. So
rescuing kittens out of
burning houses. And so they basically came to the decision early on with her case. Oh, she's definitely moving on.
Yeah,
she's good. Bad. Whereas I guess the more days that are looked at over those 4 days, the less of a chance you have.
I got that, but
right?
For some reason I thought it was the length of the trial. Okay, so
that was a little confusing.
Question at the end.
So every person, whether they're looking at 4 days from your life or 20 days from your life, they still last just 4 days. The trial itself.
Well, it's not a trial.
It's not a trial.
Not a trial. Might look like one.
But yeah, he has sushi with that one guy, and he says, "How many days do you have?" And he says 9, and the other guy says, "Oh, I got 15."
Right, 15. You're like, now I see how this works.
I love all the details. I love all the details of like how people died. Like that guy's like, "Oh, a hunter thought I was an animal." And he shot me.
That's right. And Meryl Streep's like, "I don't want to tell you, it's embarrassing."
It's really embarrassing. And she tripped into the pool. And then she's like, I was irritated. I'm a good swimmer. That's right. So I first saw this movie, Christina, when I was 15 or 16 years old in high school. And it's always meant a lot to me. I had a really bad few years when I was young, and I had a lot of stomach aches. I was very fearful. I was scared to put myself out there and go after things. And this movie really like pushed me forward in a way that very few other films have. And I would say a year after I saw this movie, I started making films. I started sending my writing out. I started getting more involved in extracurriculars and sports. And I just became a little bit more fearless. And a lot of it has to do with this movie. There's something about it where I would say to myself, Brian, what would, if you were in that space and we were looking at clips from your life, like, would you want to just show clips from when you were afraid?
Oh, no, trust me. I was thinking about clips from my life.
What can you think of one clip they would show?
From my life?
Yeah.
That's top secret information, only to be discussed with the holding.
Is that a creepy scenario, Christina? The idea that every second of your life is being recorded and people are watching.
It's horrifying. And so certainly, of course, I think of the moments of my life that I'm the most ashamed of, right? I was like, oh, but
do you think it is outside the realm of possibility that there is something like this in the afterlife?
Okay, so
where we go somewhere after we die and our life is examined. Do you think that's outside of the realm of possibility?
Have you ever read the book Life After Life?
No. By Kate Atkinson?
No.
The novel?
Ray Moody. No.
I'm thinking of a novel. Okay.
So this doctor had so many experiences. I can't remember if it was written in the 70s, I think. And then there's an updated one that's like Proof of Heaven. So there's also a series called Surviving Death, which is really good. In the first episode,
is that good?
Okay, so Ray Moody's the author that they talked to in the first episode, and he wrote this book in which he compiled all of these near-death experiences that people had, and really started to say, like, there are patterns. And one of the things he talks about is how so many people have this moment where it's like they're examining their life with this like being who's guiding them, basically. And in this, after this near death, but actually these are people who have died and then come back to life.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of no judgment, is what they say. It's like you can see your whole life and these moments that perhaps on earth you would be ashamed of, but in this place there's no judgment. You don't feel shame. You don't feel, it's more of like now we're going to see what you did, not to necessarily to pass judgment or make you feel
there's
like
not a prosecutor.
Right. But it made me think of that. I mean, I think the subject matter in this movie is really interesting and thought-provoking, even though it's like silly, right? It's like an LA style like business.
Yeah, it's a comedic writer director. I don't know if you've seen any of his other movies. Have you seen Mother by Albert Brooks starring Debbie Reynolds from 1996? Watch Mother. It's so funny. It's
I've seen a couple of movies
so
with him,
so he
but
in Mother he plays a writer who's got like writer's block, and his last book wasn't very successful, and he's struggling to kind of produce his next book, and so he thinks a way to make something better is to go live with his mom again for like a couple months and kind of renew that relationship. They haven't really been close for a long time. And it's Debbie Reynolds from Singing in the Rain plays his mom. And it's really funny. And his other famous comedy, Christina, is called Lost in America from 1985, which is hilarious.
I don't even recognize that name. I know I've seen him in things that I thought were really funny. I would never be able to.
It's him and Julie Haggerty, and they save up all their money to go on this road trip, and their very first stop is Vegas. And in the first night, his wife loses all their money gambling.
I mean, that idea is so played out, but if it's from 85, maybe they were on the early end.
It's pretty, the middle hour of the movie is so great. You got to check it out.
If you can make that topic funny, then that's worth watching, I think, because it's actually quite tragic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Albert Brooks's character goes and talks with like the manager and tries to convince him to give the money back. Like, oh, well, she didn't mean to lose all the money.
That's not how it works, buddy.
And the manager's like, that's not really how it works.
Have you never been here? Is this your first day?
So yeah, that's really good. But yeah, my favorite is Defending Your Life, which is just, I mean, is it like a cinematic masterpiece? No. There's nothing about it in terms of like cinematography or camera, or it's kind of simple on that level. Although I like the way it plays with like when it shows the clips of your life, the way he like turns around in his chair, and then you see the clip begin on the screen in front of his face. Like I like that about it.
And then you get to see his face as he's like, oh my God.
And just, I mean, can you imagine, Christina, you're in a chair and you're looking up at the screen and you're watching moments from your life, from childhood to when you died. Wouldn't that be a weird experience?
It would be so weird. And that was one of my favorite things about the movie, was how it made me think about things like that.
Yeah.
Right. How I can barely watch the Zoom video clips that I make for my students. Like, I won't even look. I'll just listen to make sure nothing really inappropriate happened, or like sound in the background or whatever. But I can't even bring myself to look at it. So it's like, to watch myself. It would be fun as a kid to be like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, I think about that sometimes. Like if there were, 5 clips that were going to be played for my life, like what would they be? That's kind of a difficult question to answer. Like which 5 clips would it be?
I need time. And the question would be then.
And would it be PG? Is my other question.
Yeah, right. Definitely, they wouldn't all be. You've met me, but that's the thing too. Is like, if so that one of the interesting things in the movie is how he keeps saying, look at these are all about money. And she's like, you don't get it. It's not about making the money or the investment, or all like very 80s style, like banker kinds of things that are focused on, which, but the idea of like, she's like, no, it's about fear. It's not about money. It's about fear.
Yeah.
So if I'm thinking about my life and I have to come up with a couple of clips, then knowing that it's about, did I take risks or not? Was I brave enough to try things? Sure, I can think of plenty of times when I wasn't playing. I mean, like taking this job and moving to this place.
That was a risk. That was huge. Yeah.
I was terrified of it, and I did it.
And it worked out.
But also plenty of times when I didn't. And so if I know, if it's about love, could you love? Then I would look through my life with that lens. And so I like thinking about it in terms of what's the thing that they would be looking for, and that would change which clips, right?
So some things I've read online, like reviews of people who don't love the movie as much, they're disappointed that it basically becomes this romance. Did that bother you at all?
I mean, it always bothers me a little bit. I'm just not yes, okay. Earlier, or I mentioned Crazy Stupid Love, which is totally about romance. And yes, I got totally sucked into that movie and became obsessed with it. But in general,
you didn't quite buy that they were in love after 4 days.
I did. That I actually think happens in real life. People just meet and they sometimes there's just that chemistry,
which I think they have. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. But I guess it's just the fact that like everything's a love story. Like,
Well,
I mean,
my
between
feel,
like a
I've
man
thought
and a
about
woman
I've
and
thought about this a lot, and I'm just like, I don't know if the movie is as successful if it doesn't have the romance,
yeah, it
because
has to.
we need that final catharsis of him breaking out of the tram and running
And what's
after her.
that scene is both hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But also it's really moving, right? It's
Because
like
the whole movie has been about
love
how
is
he
the
can
thing.
never go after what he wants. It's been, so many examples of his fear, including the night before where he's
Yeah.
afraid to go up to the room.
Oh, which I was
And
so
it's
mad.
just like
I was yelling at him. Like, you gotta go.
go up there. But I've always found that ending just so moving when he
Yeah, I
breaks out
liked
of
it
the
a lot.
tram.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit goofy movie comedy kind of, but
Sure.
I always like get kind of teary-eyed when
Yeah.
when the judge says let him go, and it
Yeah.
opens and he hugs Meryl. I just always love that scene.
Although there's part of me that's like, but he's not ready, right?
Yeah, they
No
just let
cheating. Get back in
yeah
line. Wait
yeah
your turn.
they just messed up the whole system. It's
Do you
over.
watch The Good Place?
Yeah, I watched The Good
That's
Place.
so
So
funny.
fun.
But one of the things that he's talking about in the middle, which isn't real, or in the beginning of the series, which isn't real, but he talks about is one mistake, and like the fabric of our invented world crumbles, and unicorns are flying through the sky, shooting laser darts out of their eyes, or whatever. Giant shrimps. Yeah. The fabric of the universe might have torn open at the end of that movie, but of course you want it to end that way, right? It's got to end that way.
Oh,
And
exactly.
love is the thing that makes him brave enough to overcome his fear, right? And
Yeah.
while it's super cliche, it really sincerely is often how life works, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I think, sometimes those romantic endings can be like vomit in your throat, kind of
yeah. I
saccharine.
still always
This
get
one,
teary though, even if I'm irritated. I'm like, that's so cheesy. I'm not crying, you're crying.
yeah. So any other favorite scenes? I love the scene where they go see their past lives. What do you think of
I
that
wanted
scene?
more of that. I was like, I was so excited. I remember saying to Walter, because the first time he hears about like the hall of past lives or
Yeah.
whatever, he doesn't go straight there.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like
how
it's
do
like
you
night
have
3.
better things to do right now?
Yeah.
So I remember turning to Walter and saying, when's he gonna go to that past lives hall? Because that sounds cool. But then we only got to see, like, I wanted more of that. That I feel like had loads of potential for both comedy and also insight.
Yeah.
Like, no one is just the person who rescues the cat from the burning house.
Mm.
Just like no one is just the person who is afraid and makes excuses for not taking risks. So I thought that was a place where we could have seen a little bit more.
Well, that's part of the jokes that I think land in this movie, is that this idea of like the better you lead your life, like the better accommodations you have in this place, right?
That part was hilarious. When he
like
finds out she has a sauna or a hot tub in her room,
she got like a hot tub, and
I
she
see
gets
how
like
it is.
she gets like chocolates on her
Well,
on her pillow.
When he goes into his hotel, I'm like, they keep talking about how great this place is, but he just took a tram from a bus depot or something to like a, I don't know, kind of a crappy hotel. I mean, it's the kind of hotel I can afford, but is it like the nicest? And so as soon as you see her hotel, then you're like, oh.
And then the movie just opens up all these questions.
You might not be making it.
like serial killers, where do they go? Where do the children go? Like the movie,
too many questions.
The movie opens up so many interesting questions.
Oh,
of like,
totally.
oh, well,
yeah.
Do the serial
we
killers?
tried teenagers, but it was too much.
Yeah. They said he asked.
It's so destructive.
He asked if children come here, and Rip Torn says, actually, children just move forward. Isn't that nice? So that's kind of an interesting, like, okay, so kids, if they die, they don't have them try themselves, which makes sense. That wouldn't make sense to have a 5-year-old up there like watching clips from his or her life.
The purpose is to like reach some sort of enlightenment, right? Spiritual and emotional enlightenment, and to overcome fears. And you're like reliving lives trying to learn these kinds of things. I mean, if you die as a child, I guess the assumption is that you're done.
Yeah.
Like you made it.
And kids are so fearless anyway, too.
And it's just like this comforting thought of thinking like a terrible thing that happens, which this is a really light, funny movie. And then there's this moment of children, they always go on, and it's just, there's a comfort in thinking that way, right? That it's because they're done, right? The tragedy is because they're done with this world.
Yeah, exactly. there's so many great comedic bits, like the idea that we only use 3% of our brain. If you use 51% of your brain, you still aren't funny, and you eat really gross looking food, and it's like,
so
okay,
funny.
that's what we get to look
like,
forward to.
So I left Earth where it's just all like penis size envy or whatever he says, to brain size envy, right?
He says, Rip Torn says, well, yeah, if you use more than 5% of your brain, you do not want to be on Earth. Trust me. Not that your takeout places aren't lovely, but they're a much more exciting destination.
Oh my gosh, I love Rip Torn.
Yeah, he's great. He's great in this movie.
I mean, Dodgeball is my favorite movie that he's in, of course. Because if you would ask me my favorite movies, and I was in like my 20s and 30s, then it would have
Dodgeball. What's that called? A true underdog story.
Like Super Troopers.
And Defending Your Life is also just a great food movie. It makes you hungry.
It
like
made
when
me really hungry.
Like the omelet he eats at the beginning looks so good, and like with the potatoes. Bite. And then he takes one bite, and the guy's like, "Oh, you got to go." And I'm like, "No, stay and eat."
But that's how you know they're not really in the good place to mix the the show with the movie is you get to eat everything you want. The best omelet you've ever tasted is in front of you, but then you're in such a rush you only get one bite. That doesn't sound like this
and then
wonderful world.
The Italian restaurant they go to, like the pasta that Meryl Streep eats looks so good.
Ends. And he's like dying, right? He's dying of embarrassment.
And speaking of Lee Grant, right? The prosecutor is sitting across the restaurant staring at him while he's getting like 1,000 shrimp.
And he can't handle it.
And he's sweating.
But he doesn't get it. See, and that's what the movie's about, is he doesn't get it. He thinks she's judging him.
Yeah.
For X.
Yeah.
But really, she's watching his fear control him, right?
Yeah.
He's embarrassed. What causes embarrassment? Fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these. And so he's literally turning to the woman that he loves and wants to spend eternity with. And he's like, bite that noodle off. But he's like getting panicked.
Bite it. Come on. Finish it.
Right? And the prosecutor is watching how his fear impacts the way he treats other people, right? I mean, and he doesn't even know why she's staring, and all she has to do is give him that like steely stare, and he just crumbles.
Which he's so good at.
He's great.
And then all the clips that we see from his life are really great. We haven't really talked about. You want to hear something really bizarre and crazy?
Yes, I do. Always.
The actor who plays him as a boy in those two scenes at school, the first one where he's bullied, right?
Yes.
And then he doesn't stand up for himself. That's like the first clip that's played.
Yep.
And then the second scene where his friend
the boy with the pants.
Yeah.
Who is that?
So that the actor who plays that boy, a younger Albert Brooks, I am interviewing for the podcast. I found his email.
That's so cool.
I found his email and reached out, said, "Hey, this is my favorite comedy. I'd love to talk to you about it. I know you were young at the time. Would you have any interest in being on my podcast talking about Defending Your Life?" And he wrote back. He said, "This is one of the greatest emails I've ever received." And I would. He said, "I would be honored to talk about this movie and talk about working with Albert Brooks." So that is coming up in 2 weeks. Christina.
How cool! I'll have to keep an eye out for that one.
So check that one out. That's going to come out just around, I think, within a week or two of when this episode drops. But I love those scenes too, because I've had those moments. I remember in fifth grade where a taller kid kind of bullied me, and I did not stand up for myself. I just kind of went, okay, walk the other way. And
you do candy off the ground.
And you do kind of think about that for years to come. Of like, maybe if I had stood up for myself that day, maybe I would have had a little bit more courage the next few years. And
I mean, I had an example of my own right at the tip of my tongue. So yeah, like
we've all had that moment, right? Of like an older kid who bullies us, and we just kind of shrink and go, as instead of, But then
mine wasn't even an older kid. She was a lot taller than me, though.
Okay.
And then in high school, I have another one where some girls threatened me in the hallway. I mean, I was terrified.
Yeah. And so, and it gets into the weeds a little bit, right? It's like, okay, was I supposed to punch him or her in the face?
This is one of the issues that I had some cringy moments where it's like, you didn't invest your money in the right place. Okay, well, yes, because of fear, but also like, who cares about money investing? Like, there's more to life than that, right? Or that, right? Was he supposed to punch him? Was he supposed to stand up to his dad? Like,
it's not just like it goes beyond just he should have punched the kid to the ground.
Yeah.
So it gets into the weeds there a little bit, but I do think it's important to think about. And my other two favorite clips we see of him, the first one is when he's practicing with his wife. $65,000, and it goes on and on and on
over the table.
And she's like, "What about 58? What about 50? No, I will not take this job for any less than $65,000. And then it just cuts to the wide shot of him walking in. We are prepared to offer you $49,000. I'll take it.
I mean, doesn't even flinch, doesn't even pause. He just shakes and is like, and there we go.
That is a great example
That's
of,
funny.
of
that
fear,
was funny.
right? And I'm kind of on the prosecutor side there. Yes, that was something where he let fear take over.
He didn't even try.
But in a way that's really funny.
Yeah.
And then we have to have one hilarious montage, and we do get that when Lee Grant says, "Now I'd like to just show a mix of really
like
stupid
100 and something."
Yeah, and we see like 7 of them. And it's so funny when he's rolling off the roof and you cut to the judge laughing in the back. It's one of my favorites.
Although none of those were like fear ones too. I was like,
she says
falling and looking like a.
She says we're gonna look at a 5-minute collection of or something, and she says half of them are fear-based, half of them are just stupid.
They're just funny.
And ever since I saw this movie in high school, every time I've tripped or done something really, really stupid in 3 seconds,
like, that's in my montage.
I go, that's in the montage.
I'm gonna start saying that now too, and it happens a lot. I run into a lot of things.
So any other thoughts in the film? I feel like we've touched on most of the, we haven't really even talked about Meryl Streep. She is considered our greatest living actress. And it's kind of weird for me because I wrote a book about her career a few years back. I've like really studied Meryl Streep because that's what I do. And it's kind of weird to tell people this is my favorite Meryl Streep movie.
It is weird.
And it might have the least interesting, impressive character she's ever played in her long 50-year career.
It's like the least Meryl Streepy role that Meryl Streep has ever been.
If she's ever in, I think she's appeared in more than 60 films.
Wow.
If there's ever a film she really just played herself, it's this one. But it's
really this is just who she is.
I mean, in terms of like, she usually has different hair, a different accent. She period films like this. She's really just playing kind of a version of her warm self.
It's like a normal person.
She usually
one that rescues cats out of her.
She's kind of playing. She's playing like the ideal, woman in this in some ways.
Yeah.
And she does what she can. It's not her strongest character by any means, but I do really love her in this. She's very charming. She doesn't get to play funny. At least
she is charming.
Back in the 80s, 90s, she did mostly dramas. Really, when it comes to comedy, it was kind of this and Death Becomes Her and a couple other things.
Death Becomes Her. I was thinking about that movie earlier.
Yeah,
that's a good
which
one.
I'll definitely do a bonus episode for next year for that 30th anniversary. That's also one of my favorite films, Death Becomes Her.
That's 30 years old?
Yeah. You're like, wait, how old are we? Yeah,
I just 45 like a couple weeks ago.
Oh my gosh. Well, you don't look at Christina. You look fantastic. Thank you. I just recorded a bonus episode about Happy Gilmore, which I saw.
Trust me, I was like, how come I didn't get in on that one? Why is it Plaza Suites?
I'm like, this movie's 25 years old. That was kind of crazy.
That really hurt my feelings when I saw that. It's like, how dare you remind me how old I am?
Right. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these movies that I loved as a kid, it's kind of weird, like 25 years, 30 years they came out. It's like, wow.
I was 20 when Happy Gilmore came out.
Okay.
And I would definitely have listed that amongst my favorite movies at one time in my life, like in my 20s. I mean, it was like Grandma's Boy, Happy Gilmore, I already listed some of those, but Happy Gilmore and Adam Sandler movies were definitely on there. I mean, I just loved him. I thought he was the funniest. Although his dramatic work is almost better because you don't expect it, and he does.
Yeah,
great.
Did you see Uncut Gems?
I started it,
and it's very stressful.
It was so stressful that we decided we had to come back to it.
Yeah,
like, it was.
Give it a shot. Give it a night when you're calm.
I was getting ready for the board meeting where they were doing tenure, and I just had like all this anxiety, and we had to turn it off.
Yeah.
But I love, and this isn't like a drama, I guess, but it's not his normal. Is Punch Drunk Love? Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
And,
my two favorite dramas with him are Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. Yeah, people think of him as a comedian, but he's done some really interesting dramatic films too.
I love his dramatic work.
Yeah.
I mean, Spanglish, I probably have seen the movie Spanglish 20 times. There was a time where I just loved it.
You just watched it on repeat, just over and over?
Basically.
So speaking of dramatic roles, Albert Brooks also has done some dramas. He is frightening in a film with Ryan Gosling called Drive from 2011.
I haven't seen it.
Have you heard of it?
Of course.
So it came out. So for Ryan Gosling, came out the same year as Crazy Stupid Love, 2011. In the fall. Yeah, it's like this kind of dark
supposed to be
drama.
really, I mean, I've seen clips of it and it looks intense.
It was my pick for the best film of 2011, and Albert Brooks plays.
I'm sorry, over Crazy Stupid Love. We gotta talk about that. I'm just kidding.
Albert Brooks, Christina, from Defending Your Life, the lead. He plays the villain in Drive, and he plays a really angry, creepy, disturbing bad guy. And you're like, as a lifelong fan of Defend Your Life, it was a very unusual,
jarring
to watch Drive. I'm like,
think about you that way, right?
So and he got a lot of awards buzz. He didn't actually get an Oscar nomination, although I thought he deserved
Yeah, but
it.
I heard that movie was excellent.
It's really good.
What's the one he's in with another super famous actor whose name is escaping me, where like their kids are getting married?
The In-Laws with Michael Douglas.
Yes, Michael Douglas. I really like.
I have never seen that movie actually. I've never seen The In-Laws. No.
I mean, I didn't like love it. I only watched it one time, but I remember cracking up.
Other projects that Albert Brooks is known for is 1987's Broadcast News. Have you heard of that movie from the late 80s?
I have heard of it. I
really
have not
great.
Seen it.
His one and only Oscar nomination.
Really,
Albert Brooks. He got a Best Supporting Actor nomination for Broadcast News, where there's this great scene where he's like on air reporting the news and he's having a panic attack. So he starts just slowly on air live sweating.
Melts.
And it just gets worse and worse. And he's trying to read the news and it's just
I can't watch people have panic attacks.
It's just like drenched his shirt and he's like trying to and it's so awkward and so hilarious.
That would give me a panic attack is the problem. That's part of why I couldn't finish Uncut Gems. I had to take a break because I was like, my heart was just pounding.
And then of course he's also known as, he's the lead voice in Finding Nemo. Right, he's
my favorite role of his.
So that's if your favorite Albert Brooks movie would be Finding Nemo.
Well, I don't know. I really like Finding Dory a lot too.
And Finding Dory, which he's also in.
I think you'd be surprised how much I have to say about those movies. I love the fact that it's about like a single father with a child that has a physical, disability and like this chosen family, and then Dory. Just really mixes it up in a way that
and Ellen DeGeneres is so funny as Dory, and I liked the sequel, was great, but I
loved it, and it's got Dee from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and it's got somebody else I love, the guy from Modern Family.
Yeah, Ed O'Neill.
Oh my God, no. Well, yeah, him too.
Oh, Ty Burrell. Ty Burrell. Yeah, and they're both in Finding Dory.
Hank, who's a septipod. I mean, it's just so clever, but also I feel like the messages about family and about like how different families can look. It was really a big deal to me because my kids were the perfect age. Olivia was the perfect age for us to watch Finding Nemo like 8 gazillion times. And
it's one of Pixar's best. Yeah.
It never got old. I could watch it over and over. And then when Finding Dory came out, Finney was really the perfect age. And I've seen both of those movies so many times and I can watch them every time.
Did you think
final scene in Finding Dory where they're all flying in slow motion? I mean, I almost pee my pants when I watch that scene. It's so funny to me. That movie is just fantastic.
Yeah, so he's had a really great career. I mean, he's in this, classic Pixar, these two great Pixar movies, and done great work as an actor, both in comedy and in drama. And then he's also known as a, really talented writer director. He wrote and directed, I think, 7 films. His first one from 1979 is called Real Life, which is where it's kind of like definitely before its time. He does like a documentary, like it's like a fake documentary of like following a family around. In real life, it's a comedy. Everything he wrote and directed was a comedy.
That makes sense because he's a funny guy.
And then I believe the second one he did is called Modern Romance, or is it Problems? It might be Problems, from like 81, 82. And then Lost in America is really beloved. That would be my second favorite of his. And then Defending Your Life, my first favorite. And then my third favorite would be his other film Mother from 96. And then the other one maybe worth looking at is called The Muse from 1999, starring Sharon Stone, and it's like a Hollywood story, a really funny comedy where he's also kind of like Mother. He's a writer with writer's block, and he needs a muse, Christina. He needs a muse, and he actually finds one in a human being. That's what Sharon Stone does for a living. She is a muse for Hollywood
what she does
screenwriters.
for a living.
Yeah,
That's
they come see her, and for lots of money, and she gives them the inspiration they need to write their next,
just by being who she is,
to write their next hit movie. They come to Sharon Stone, and she
That's
gives
funny.
them that inspiration. It's really funny. It's got a lot of cameos from famous movie directors, and
I love that stuff too.
so that's really yeah. I mean, Defending Your Life, obviously very, very important movie to me, but he's done a lot of other great work, both in acting and as a director. So check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
All right. So thanks, Christina, for being on this bonus episode about Defending Your Life.
Thank you for having me.
I can't believe it's celebrating its 30th anniversary this spring.
Crazy.
So it's pretty fantastic. So if you've never seen it before, check it out. And so thanks so much for being here, Christina. And thanks to all of you for listening. We will catch you next time on Film at 50.